through this campaign, Andrew Mellon was sort of a banker. I think I forget which bank right now, but anyway, banker out of New York who set up a whole bunch of different things, including I think being the founding banker of the Gulf Oil Company. He helped. I don't think he established DuPont Chemicals, but he really, as the financer of DuPont Chemicals, helped that company grow and thrive in the early 1900s, as well as not only becoming the richest man in the world, apparently, or maybe it was North America, sorry, the richest man in North America, ended up becoming the Secretary Treasurer for the United States government, essentially controlling the financial treasury. And so the cotton farmers, the chemical industry, the newspapers, and the emerging fuel industries were the earliest to see hemp as competition. The other one that's not as well known, I hinted on, is the fuel companies. When the diesel engine was made, apparently Rudolf Diesel used vegetable oil the first time.
That was the intention.
That was the full intention, was to have a vegetable oil fuels, and then it was altered to be able to use the petrochemical fuels, or you have all sorts of names for them, but anyway, it was something that there was this kind of competition and decision about which one was going to be best and the most efficient and the cheapest, and some of the very issues we have going on today about whether it's going to take food away from people. They had some issues, certainly many issues around poverty and such back then, but I think as of today it's more of a distribution problem than it is sometimes a production problem. And so it's something that the prohibition of alcohol apparently was in part enacted to stop farmers from making their own ethanol-based fuels. And because it's easier to actually use that sort of process and more efficient, and get kind of more out of what you put in some ways than pressing the seeds and using that oil. And so that oil is very useful and a little bit more expensive in some ways to come up with as much as you can a biofuel, right? You can make biofuel out of anything. You don't need to use the best oil out there, but hemp seed oil is the best out there. So making a blend would probably in some ways be the best, but by eliminating the use of biofuels first, the fuel companies were able to start cornering the market, and the farmers that turned to using hemp seed fuels or other seed fuels were either taken out. Well, I don't know if there were any other seed fuels being used much, because none of them are as efficient as hemp. It just seems to be for also burning purposes.
Potato for ethanol.
Okay, so potatoes, that's right. Probably pig shit too. Anyway, there's certainly things that can be used as fuels. That, but again, the hemp seed is quite expensive. But in essence, if this wouldn't have happened, we could have farmers growing their own fuels for not only their factories, their tractors, producing electricity for their farms and their homes, and whatever other production facilities they had, and then they'd be able to sell the fiber somewhere. And as I said, the fiber is useful for all sorts of things. Well, wait, no, I'll come to this. Yeah. How much time do I have? It's going fast.
You have 12 minutes.
Okay, so Andrew Mellon, Secretary Treasurer, richest guy in North America. And 1923, I think, was when he got into that position. And so the U.S. governments, and the navies and stuff all stopped buying hemp products entirely. They discouraged any research into hemp, so government grants were put into everything but hemp. If your products had any hemp in it, the U.S. government wouldn't buy any of it. They discouraged it. They did everything they can to take hemp out of the picture. So by 1937, very few people knew about it. They'd all heard about this marijuana, and they were hoping any black guys didn't come into the community for their daughters. But it was something that they really had very little experience with. hemp even at 1937. There was some farmers and certain people, used it and clung to it, but for the most part, people were wanting to live in the new age. So hemp was put down as like the old stuff, sort of like you're wearing burlap bags. Why aren't you wearing the silk kind of thing? There was this new age mentality, and hemp was kind of put off as being of the old world and not of the new age. So there's a lot of subtle marketing techniques. Harry Anslinger, though, is the one who really kind of pounded it down, because state by state, various governments were passing anti-marijuana laws. I think it sort of started in California with almost this like medical marijuana kind of law, where you could only get it as medicine, or they were taxing it. And yeah, because it started out a lot of times with tax laws, like the Marijuana Tax Act. It was $100 per ounce. At the time, $100 was like, could buy you ounces of gold, sort of thing. So, for hemp farmers, it was ridiculous to think to pay that. And so, the taxes were one way that they tried to control it. But with Texas, with one state after another, thanks for trying, guys. You got to give up. Anyway, so yeah, state by state, these laws are being passed, sort of like the way we're breaking it down in the reverse now, where state by state, where there are medical marijuana laws and decrim laws and stuff, right? So U.S. policies and politics are quite different than ours here. So anyway, state by state, they were passing these laws, and then Andrew Mellon decided the best way that he could give his headache nephew-in-law a job or a position in the world where he could do what he loved and get out of his hair, basically, because Andrew Mellon, like I say, had all these businesses, right, that he was working with, Gulf Oil Company, DuPont, banking, all this stuff. But apparently Harry Anslinger was a jerk, right, who just like loved being a jerk. And so Andrew was like, I don't want this guy to be representing my business or dealing with me. And when alcohol prohibition was falling apart, there's all these like almost unemployed police officers, because they didn't have much to do anymore, and as alcohol was becoming legalized. And so they created the Federal Bureau of Narcotics to keep all of these agents employed, because the U.S. government is sort of also famous for having all sorts of agencies and bureaus that you've never heard of, right? So they kind of like transfer from one bureau to another. So it's like, yeah, I was with the Alcohol Bureau yesterday, and now with the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and got this new badge kind of thing. So yeah, that's kind of what happened, right? And oh.
Okay.
And so Harry, took charge of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics, and unfortunately thrived in that position. And
doesn't want to work.
So the lecture series is all available on the Hempology photo gallery. So anyway.
Next week.
We'll try to.
Forgettable, you're flowing good, man.
So
The Bureau.
The Bureau, right? Harry Anslinger was just on it, and he just was this zealot, right? Sometimes they are. And he was like the head of, basically the DEA for like 35 years or something like that. It was ridiculous. He was into the 70s almost. And anyway, he was able to just slowly convince all these people of the Marijuana Tax Act. And it wasn't really debated much at all in the United States. The only two groups that stood in opposition to it were the American Medical Association, who stood up and said, like, this is a medicine, what the hell's going on? We just found out about this thing, we can't believe this is what you're doing. Please don't do this, this is the worst possible thing you could do to the medical industry, but oh my god, you can't stop. Bang. The other group were birdseed and poultry farmers, I guess I should say, yeah, birdseed suppliers and poultry farmers, because the best eggs came from birds that ate hemp seed. And the oils that the seeds have, if the birds just love them, and they produce these huge fat, just mega nutritious eggs. And the poultry farmers were like begging them, going like, gee,